and alhamdulillah, we have been studying 33rd word, and we were doing 33rd window with Sister Yamina, and this is part of Risala in Noor, and which is a treatise written by Sayyid Nursi rahimahullah. And last week we did delve into a little bit on 19th word about prophethood, and also on the 19th letter, a little bit Sister Yamina touched about the miracles of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And inshallah, today we'll continue with the study of 33rd book, which is Yamina, and this is Sister Yamina. You can start.
Thank you, Ziba. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So today inshallah is the end of our journey with this 33 windows, which was also called the 33rd word, which is the last treatise in the book called Kalimat, the words, which is a tafsir of the Qur'an by Imam Badi'u Zaman Sa'id al-Nursi, rahimahullah. So if you remember, there were 30 windows. Each was based on either one or several passages from the Qur'an and teaching us how to look at the creation as signs, as messengers from the divine, and how to read and decipher and hear the creation and their tasbihat, their glorification, and how they are testifying to the oneness and unity of the source of everything, of God, and how teaching us how to witness with them, to testify and perform the shahada actively, consciously. And the 31st window was about the human soul, the ruh, the human consciously participating in this, getting to know God, getting to know firstly who we are, what we are doing in this world, where we came from, where we are going to, where we are heading, and the meaning and the purpose of this life. And the 32nd window last week was about the Prophet, alayhi salatu wassalam, peace and blessings be upon him. And this 33rd window, the last window, is about the Qur'an. So we'll start, inshallah. And of course, the Qur'an is obviously, we've been using it from the beginning. But from the beginning, someone who is listening and learning from the first time doesn't know the meaning of the Qur'an, the value, the significance of the Qur'an. It's only as we followed its guidance, as we got to experience the effects of that guidance in our life here and now through the 30 windows, that we started feeling, if we do the work, we start feeling closeness to the Qur'an, a love, and intimate, it's like an intimate companion. So now we should have at least an idea about the extraordinary importance, like the primordial, crucial importance of the Qur'an in our life. So, Bismillah, if someone, inshallah, would read this window for us.
Assalamu alaikum. I will read, inshallah.
Thank you.
33rd window, Surah Kahf, verses 1 to 2. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Praise be to God, who has revealed to his servant the book and has allowed no crookedness therein. Surah Ibrahim, verse 1. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alif, Lam, Ra. A book which we have revealed to you in order that you might lead mankind out of darkness into light. Think of all the windows we have mentioned as being a few drops from the ocean of the Qur'an. Then you will be able to compare how many lights of divine unity, like the water of life, the Qur'an contains. But even if the Qur'an, the source and origin and fountain of all those windows, is considered in an extremely brief and simple manner, it still forms a most brilliant, luminous, comprehensive window. To see how certain and shining and luminous this window is, we refer you to the treatise on the miraculousness of the Qur'an, the 25th word, and to the 18th sign of the 19th letter. And beseeching the merciful throne of the all-glorious one who sent us the Qur'an, we say, in the name of God, the most compassionate, the most loving, O our sustainer, do not take us to task if we forget or unwittingly do wrong. O our sustainer, let not our hearts deviate now after you have guided us. O our sustainer, accept this from us. Indeed, you are the all-hearing, the all-seeing. And turn unto us, for you are the oft-returning, most compassionate. Note, God willing, this 33rd letter of 33 windows will bring to belief those without belief, strengthen the belief of those whose belief is weak, make certain the belief of those whose belief is strong but imitative, give greater breadth to the belief of those whose belief is certain, lead to progress in knowledge of God, the basis and means of all true perfection, for those whose belief has breadth, and open up more brilliant vistas for them. One moment, you cannot say, therefore, that one window is enough for me, because if your reason is satisfied, your heart wants its share as well, and so will your spirit want its share. Your imagination will also want its share of the light. The other windows are also necessary, therefore, for each contains different benefits. In the treatise on the ascension of the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was primarily the believer who was addressed, while the atheist was in the position of listener. But in this treatise, it is the denier who is addressed, while it is the believer who is in the position of listener. This should be taken into consideration when looking at it. Unfortunately, due to an important reason, this letter was written with extreme speed. It has also remained in the state of the first draft. There will certainly, therefore, be some irregularities and defects in the way it is expressed, which are due to me. I request of my brothers then that they look at it with tolerance, brothers and sisters, I'm sure, and correct it if they are able, and pray for my forgiveness. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. That was at the end of it? Okay. One moment. Peace be on those who follow guidance, and disapproval on those who follow their own desires. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Glory be unto you. We have no knowledge save that which you have taught us. Indeed, you are all knowing, all wise. O God, grant blessings and peace to the one whom you sent as a mercy to all the worlds, and to his family and companions, and grant them peace. Ameen.
Thank you. Thank you, Jazakallah khair. So here he starts with these two passages from the Qur'an, which is also interesting because passages in the Qur'an that refer to the Qur'an, there are so many, but here he chose the first one, which is Alhamdulillah alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitaba wa lam yaj'al lahu 'iwajan qayyima. And the second one is easier to understand because it says Alif Lam Ra, a book which we have sent to you in order that you might lead humankind, and Nas is humankind or people, out of darkness into light, which is very important because and we only realize that we were in darkness when we get to move into the light. Otherwise, we're not even aware that we are in darkness. And so anyone who has benefited just a little bit from the Quran can testify to the truthfulness of this ayah. And the previous one, the one from Surah Al-Kahf, is the more you study the Quran, the more we get to realize that it is indeed like there is no crookedness. There is also, I'll come back to it later. Okay, I'll come back to it later. In the 25th word, which is on the miraculousness of the Quran, the examples that are, or the passages from the Quran that are selected by the author, Imam Nursi, he takes lots of passages where people had said, what's the meaning of this? So he selected particularly some of those passages. So here we understand the first paragraph is saying all the windows we have mentioned earlier are like few drops from the ocean of the Quran. And why is he talking about ocean and drops in ocean? First, because ocean is like almost endless compared with drops, and also because he's comparing the guidance and the message of the Quran to the water of life. Water of life means, in a way, the physical water brings life. Life is sent through water, by means of water, as we are told in the Quran. وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ. So physical water is used to give life to all kinds of beings, unrelated to each other, like animals and insects and plants. And can you imagine like the water of the Quran, the message and the meaning of the Quran, when it comes to the hearts and souls, it gives them light and they flourish and they grow and they produce fruits. And the fruits are something that we can see and light in this world and in the next, like everlasting fruits. So he's saying they are like drops. But even if the Quran, the source, origin, fountain of all those windows, since the windows were only following the guidance of those passages from the Quran, and it doesn't, even those passages contain much more than what was expounded in each window. Even in this work of Imam Nursi, you will find the same ayah in different parts of the Risala with different expounded and in different ways, because that's the eternal word of God Almighty. So there are many, many layers of meanings and messages and guidance that speaks to different people at different times in different situations. So even if the Quran, the source and origin and fountain of all those windows, is considered in extremely brief and simple manner, which is how we consider it, because we are not the experts, and we have not like spent decades studying it and living with it, it still forms a most brilliant, luminous, comprehensive window. And I'm sure I personally can testify that it is a most brilliant, a most luminous, a most comprehensive window, because I've been benefiting from it for so many years, alhamdulillah. And maybe anyone would like to share if you've benefited from the Quran.
So, Yamina, every time, even just Surah Fatiha, if you read it every day in every salah, and after any other experience also, like that same Surah Fatiha, it brings so much of meaning and so much of like it has different taste every time you read it and you utter it. So like just from Surah Fatiha, like we can benefit so much. So I don't know, like if you delve into Quran, how much we can dive in and benefit, inshallah. Sister Alia, your hand is raised. Please feel free to unmute.
So, subhanallah, also depending, Yamina, on the situation that we're in, every time we're experiencing different feelings, the Quran speaks to you differently. And like one of the things that you remind us with is like the more we need, like, you always say, Fakri Fakhri, the more you need, the more, like, it's my pride. Why? Because also meanings get revealed to you. Today we had a short discussion about Surah Al-Sharh, and as we were reading it, every time we read it, like, there's a new meaning. But فَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ وَإِلَى رَبِّكَ فَارْغَب, like وَإِذَا فَرَغْتَ فَانْصَبْ, like in the past it used to say something along the lines of when you're done, like, when you're done with your daily work, like, come to me in prayer. But now, like, because we were in need for guidance and healing as we were discussing it, we realize it's, at least what came to our heart, that it's related to that burden. أَلَمْ نَشْرَحْ لَكَ صَدْرَكَ وَوَضَعْنَا عَنْكَ وِزْرَكَ الَّذِي أَنْقَضَ ظَهْرَكَ. Haven't we been the, like, the source that has brought relief to you and took down that burden? And then, so when you take down, so the faraqta, when you're done, when you start this, like, when you're done making idols, when you're done, purifying yourself, you'll be able to stand up, like, with dignity in front of your Lord. And these kind of meanings are important because this is how we feel the burden makes us feel enslaved to different things. And then you realize that the Quran is saying, yes, start this, and then you can now stand up with dignity in front of me. You can stand as my abd. So nothing else can do that. Nothing else can give us this confirmation that our Rabb, who knows what we're suffering from and knows how we make up idols and how we suffer from those idols that we make up, and he says, come to me, like, in this hardship that you're suffering from right now, there is ease. Inna ma'al usri yusra. I have put the ease of finding me into that hardship, because that hardship is your soul saying, no, I'm not happy with what you're doing, this is not working for me. And then you'll find the ease in knowing me. So, like, who else can tell us that? So for me, like, more and more.
Alia emphasized healing and ease, and also you mentioned at the beginning something that Ziba also mentioned, which she's like, the taste is renewed according to the needs, because in different situations we have different needs. So the taste is renewed because the needs are also renewed. So each time we taste the meanings of the Quran in different way, that unfold in different way, in a way that each time answers the situation we are in and speaks to it. Alhamdulillah. Yes, please. Anyone else?
Assalamu alaikum. Yes, I mean,
Alaikum salam.
I could share so many incidents. I mean, so many, like you said, an endless number of times in which the Quran has profoundly guided me, completely shifted my life, as it should and as it would, being the direct speech of my creator, the source of my existence. And I remember reading it even before I took my first Shahada, and immediately, maybe not immediately, but within the course of starting to read it in English, starting to get a sense that this is really speaking to me about my current spiritual crisis. Like, it somehow is answering exactly what I need at the moment. And through its, and it was, I shared this on an earlier halaqah, it was through the ayah of like, and through the passages mostly of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam, but which he is, searching for the one God, and also in which he is battling people, or he's engaging with injustice of following blindly, what your ancestors were following. And it was through seeking out an answer to that question that asking, what does this mean? Like, how is that consistent with justice towards all of humanity, that ultimately convinced me of the truth of Islam. So, it was this direct guidance there in my hands that did that. And then I was just having a conversation today with someone about how ayahs can come in a way at a time of need. And, sometimes when a person, so there's a group of people who, read the ayah of the Quran, the recitations, and they sort of read it like a history book, and it's not really relevant to your life here and now. But I feel that many people have had the experience where they are reading a surah that seemingly has a very, it's not very obvious what the connection is here and now, yet it is speaking to a part of ourselves that it will, if we allow it to, if we're open to it, it will come and heal us in so many ways. So, for example, this was a man who he was sharing about an experience in college in which he was having trouble with the Muslim Student Association and with the local masjid. He got kicked out of the masjid, and it was for a very frivolous reason. And he felt like giving up on his faith. And he had no one who was there to try to, support him. And he was thinking of doing something that was even haram to sort of take away his pain. And he said that Surah Asr, maybe something that he learned as a child, came to him, and he just kept repeating it until his desire first to, do anything that was haram stopped. And then second, the healing came from, the current sticky situation that he was in relation to his community. And so it was, he goes back to that memory in his life, and he's like, it was Surah Asr that saved me, you know. And so what kind of importance like do we have now when we realize it was, you know, a single ayah or a single small surah that like completely directed our lives? We would have made decisions that would have taken us years and years far away from, you know, the meaning and purpose of our life and of being truly guided. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. MashaAllah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. MashaAllah. So I'll carry on with this window, and inshallah, if anything comes to your mind, please share. This is the window of the Qur'an. So he's saying to see how certain and shining and luminous this window of the Qur'an is, we refer you to the treatise on the miraculousness of the Qur'an, the 25th word, and the 18th sign of the 19th letter. There is also an earlier work which is called Signs of Miraculousness, Isharat al-I'jaz fi Madan al-Ijaz, which is originally in Arabic. And you can find it online. It's translated as Signs of Miraculousness, but it's a little bit like you need to know a little more Arabic. It's actually, it shows the miraculousness in the conciseness of the language. So the use of grammar is a little more than in the other Arabic grammar, more than other parts. And there is a dua now from the Qur'an. ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم. There is a note here when he says that he's, inshallah, he's hoping that this 33 windows will bring to belief those without belief, strengthen the belief of those whose belief is weak, da'if, and make certain the belief of those who is strong but imitative, taqlidi. It means they don't have evidence, they have not studied or learned how to interact or engage the creation with the guidance of the Qur'an. So they have a strong belief because if the fitrah is healthy and not distorted, if the heart is wholesome and healthy, there is an inclination to accept the truth. But in the Quran, we are not, or Iman, like true belief is, it is not enough to not reject. The acceptance has to be based on evidence, so that the mind, the intellect, the heart, the soul, all of them are satisfied. And so that there is certainty, yaqeen. There are degrees of certainty, but we need to have some level of certainty. So that's why he's saying to make certain, to give certainty to those who have a strong belief, but it is taqlidi. If they were not born in a Muslim community, Muslim family, they probably wouldn't be Muslim. And give a greater breadth to the belief of those whose belief is certain. It is certain, they have the evidences, they are witnessing and testifying, living the shahada, but the world is huge and it is constantly being renewed. So that belief also needs to be constantly being renewed, as we are told, as the Prophet ﷺ says, جددوا إيمانكم بلا إله إلا الله. Renew your iman, your belief in God, with La ilaha illallah. So this La ilaha illallah is not just words. La ilaha illallah is something that I'm witnessing, I'm seeing, living, experiencing. It's a reality. It's a lived reality. Tawheed is a lived reality. It's not a dogma. It's not something we just repeat and we don't know what it means. And for those whose belief has breadth, and it opens up more brilliant vistas for them. So the dua here is that it's going to benefit everyone, wherever we are in our journey towards God, towards fulfilling the purpose of our life here on earth. And you cannot say, he's saying, therefore, that one window is enough for me, because if your reason is satisfied, okay, I understood, it makes sense. Your heart also wants its share as well. And so will your ruh, your spirit, your soul wants its share. Your imagination will also want its share. And we talked about imagination before. Imagination, we imagine it as something like anything that is not real, we think is imagination. But that's not, we're talking here about imagination as a human ability that we are created from. And just like everything, the mind, the heart, the soul, all of them have their duties of worship and ibadah and ubudiyah. So too does the imagination. And so they also need to be cultivated and nurtured and with the message of the Qur'an, with the truth and the light of the Qur'an. And as I mentioned before, I mean, even if we think a little bit about it, anything that didn't exist before, and before it is created in the physical world, it exists first in the imagination of someone. Someone receives the inspiration, and that inspiration is going to, like the imagination is like a mirror that receives the message. And then the person will, for instance, if you imagine a house, let's make it easy, and then that house you draw it on paper, and then you start building it. So it looks, when we are not, this is something that I repeat from time to time because it's very important. It's iman bil ghaib. Iman is this certainty. Bil ghaib is not iman bil whatever exists now, because whatever exists now is already not only it is a sign to the source, but it's also coming from the source. So what we think when we are disconnected from reality, disconnected, unconscious, living in ghafla, disconnected from our Rabb, disconnected from who we truly are, it seems to us that we exist independently on our own. We don't question it. It feels that way. It's not like we thought about it and said, there is no doubt I exist like that. It's not that way. It's just how it feels. And therefore, we project this feeling onto everything. And it feels like the more concrete, the more solid something is, the more we believe in it. This is reality. This is what I see and touch and smell is reality. That's not the truth. That's there is something more real than that, because that's the coming from somewhere. The source of that is more real than that. And how do we know? That's why something very crucial in being open to receive the guidance of the Qur'an and to be open to learn to read the signs and to hear and participate in their glorification is to be present to the flow of creation. Things are transient, they are temporary, they are impermanent. Everything is changing all the time. This is so important. If we are not present in the moment, then it means we are not open to this reality. And if we are not open to this reality, we cannot fathom, we cannot truly feel in our heart, in our soul, how this physical reality is an impermanent reality. It's a glimpse of the true reality. It's just glimpses, letting us know about the source of all realities. And that's when the shift starts changing in our how we interact with ourselves, how we feel about ourselves, and how we interact with the world, and also our needs, or what we think is our needs, or our desires and our priorities start shifting as well. Inshallah. So where was that? So that's why here one window is not enough, because also, I mean, if you look at the Qur'an refers to the ayat in the creation so repeatedly in so many different ways. It talks about water so many times. I mean, we understood, someone can say, I understood, like you have to say it twice is okay. No. How to pray, how to perform the salat twice is okay, because you learn how to perform it, it's okay. However, how to be present during the salat is not something that you can understand in one or two hearings, because it's something that needs to be cultivated, and it's something that does not have limits, because the object of our worship is limitless. So I can't say enough, now I know God, finished. It means you don't know what you're talking about. And not only that, I mean, there are so many ayat, so many passages in the Qur'an talking about the creation from different perspectives. And when we go and look at the creation, we find that, as we are told in the Qur'an, everything is flowing, everything is constantly undergoing change. It means they are windows, but these windows, there are windows after window after window. The window doesn't last. They are just like vistas, like showing, and then something else comes, something else comes. There is this flow of windows. And at the same time, each window, there is window within window within window. They are all interconnected and interrelated. So it's not something that I can say, enough, I understood, because even if I intellectually understand, it is not enough for the heart to be satisfied. The heart needs more. It's like something we talked about, needs. The more the need, the more we need to take care of it more often. For instance, eating, we can eat once a day. It's perfectly okay. We can even eat once every few days and nothing will happen. Maybe it's even better for the body. But when it comes to water, it's not the same. We need water more often. And when it comes to air, which we often take for granted because it's there all the time, air is different. Air, we need it all the time. We can't stop. And so it is with the intellect is like the food once we understand, it's okay. But then we need to remember and reflect so that the heart can also benefit from it, and so that the soul can benefit from it as well. And not only the same thing needs to be reflected on and repeated, but also the same name of God. If we only see it from one perspective in one thing, it's not enough, because the object of our inquiry, of our reflection, of our worship is endless. In the treatise, and going back to the window, on the ascension of the Prophet ﷺ, al-Mi'raj, it was primarily the believer. He says it at the beginning of the treatise, that he's talking to the believer primarily, and from time to time saying something for the atheist who is a listener. But here, remember, at the end of every window, he would say, oh, like astronomer or this and that, how can you still deny, or what are you relying on when you're saying this? So here it's different. In this treatise, the denier, it is the denier who is addressed, while it is the believer who is in the position of listener. And at the end, he also says that it was written with extreme speed, and it's only the first draft. This is almost true for most of the Risala, of his work, the work of this author, because he lived in, except maybe some of his very first old works, when he was still free, but later he was either in prison or under house arrest and in exile. So it was always written, either they didn't have enough paper, they had to smuggle paper in the prison, for instance. And when he was under house arrest, they wouldn't have almost, and he was always been poisoned many times, so his health also was not very good. So many of his works were like, he would just dictate and people would write for, a person would write for 3 hours or so a day. And they were written very concisely, very quickly. And sometimes he would say that he wanted to write more, but then they didn't have the conditions were not right. So they were under very, very harsh and hard conditions. I mean, tortured, like tortured in the sense of being put in winter, in a place where it's freezing in the winter, but in a cell with broken windows and things. They were trying to have him die without saying that we killed him directly. So we just keep in mind these things, and he's saying there will certainly therefore be some irregularities, defects in the way it is expressed, which are due to me. I request of my brothers, here my brothers is English translation. The original is means, doesn't have gender, it's genderless, so it's a brother and sister, siblings. Then that they look at it with tolerance and correct it if they are able, and pray for my forgiveness. May Allah forgive him and forgive us all, inshallah. This at the end is a well-known, typical traditional dua. وَالسَّلَامُ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الْهُدَى وَالْمَلَامُ عَلَى مَنِ اتَّبَعَ الْهَوَى. Peace be upon those who follow guidance, and disapproval be on those who follow their own desires. And then سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم is a dua that Imam Nursi uses at the end of almost all his work. Glory be unto you, we have no knowledge except that you have taught us, indeed, you are all-knowing, all-wise. And finishing with Salat was Salam is what we all need to do. We learn this is the adab of any coming together in Algeria, even for secular, like people coming together for music or concert or something, the singer will start and end with Salat wa Salam ala Rasul. So it's became part of the culture. And of course, when we know the meaning of Salat wa Salam, then we will want to say it more often, because it's a reminder, it's a dhikr, it's a reminder, it's a remembering, and also being grateful. Being grateful for the Qur'an, for instance. If there was no person who was able to, to receive the Qur'an, we would not be able to benefit from it, for instance. So the more we remember how we are benefiting from the guidance of the Qur'an, the more we feel the appreciation and the gratitude. That appreciation and gratitude for the guidance of the Qur'an will lead us to also be grateful to the Prophet ﷺ, who not only brought the Qur'an to us, but also taught us how to live with the Qur'an, how to apply it in our life. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala man arsaltahu rahmatan lil alamin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallim. Ameen. So the 25th word, which is on the miraculousness of the Qur'an, at the beginning. So there are many passages of the Qur'an, and he would explain how it is miraculous, not only language-wise, but meaning-wise as well. So he says at the beginning, most of the verses in this treatise of the miraculousness of the Qur'an have either been the cause of criticism by atheists, or they have been objected to by scientists, or they have been the subject of doubt and misgiving by Satans among jinn and man. Thus, in this 25th word, has explained the truth and fine points of those verses in such a way that the very points which the atheists and scientists imagine to be false have been proved according to scholarly principles to be flashes of miraculousness and the sources of the perfection of the Qur'an's eloquence. In order not to cause aversion, decisive answers have been given without mentioning their doubts. So when he gives the answer, this is a principle that Imam Nursi uses most of the time. He doesn't tell you in details, or sometimes doesn't even mention what did these people say about this passage. Why? Because then it was someone who never heard about them, someone who is not in that field. You are going to now confuse them, bringing all this kind of thing. So he just answers. And this method is really, like, pedagogically, it's very educative, because now you are focusing on the solution. Once you have the solution, once you truly internalize it, later, if you come across anything that is like an objection or anything, you are ready to bring up to adapt the solution to the occasion, to the condition you find yourself in. And it becomes more authentic and more original, and it's not confusing. In the 18th letter, no, 19th letter, sorry, 19th letter. The 19th letter is about the miracles of the Prophet, if you remember from last week. And in the 18th sides, he talks about the Qur'an, because the Qur'an is the 19th letter, I most probably has 19 signs, and the 18th one is the Qur'an, because the Qur'an is, he starts with the greatest miracle of God's noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace. So here it's, again, I feel the need to emphasize this. He's saying the greatest miracle, he's not saying the only miracle, because this is often misunderstood. I mentioned it, I think, last week, not only by Orientalists, but by some, especially like modern Muslim scholars, especially those who are more rationalists, because they feel like the miracles are cannot be explained rationally, so they don't believe in miracles. So they said, this is it, like rational. The Quran is the miracle of the Prophet. Yes, it is the miracle. It is the greatest miracle, but it's not the only miracle. And why is it the greatest? Because obviously, compared to other known miracles that not only Muhammad but all the prophets, as mentioned in the Quran, or as mentioned in their own scriptures and in their own religions, at least the Abrahamic ones. But I'm sure the other religions also, all the prophets have performed miracles in their own literature. And those miracles, they are very similar to each other. If you read the 19th letter, you will see that at the beginning he's talking about more than 300 miracle. Let me check the 19th letter. At the beginning he says, this treatise describes more than 300 miracles. And as it describes the messengership of Muhammad ﷺ, itself is a miracle. So it is itself a wonder in a few ways. And he goes ahead and talks about the different ways. He also, in the first sign, so this is the 18th sign, the first sign he says, the possessor and master of the universe surely does everything with knowledge, disposes every affair with wisdom, directs everything all-seeingly. Of course, all these things, we've seen them in the 33 windows, but all the words, for instance, are in a way showing how the universe has a possessor and how everything is being done in such a wise way, beneficial way, orderly way, harmonious way, that whoever is the maker, the creator, the source of all this, must have, of course, knowledge and wisdom, and in order to direct everything all-seeingly. He treats everything all-knowingly, arranges everything, willing the instances of wisdom, purposes, benefits that are apparent in them. Since then, the one who creates knows, surely the one who knows will speak. Since he will speak, surely he will speak to those who possess consciousness and thought, and those who will understand his speech. Since he will speak to those who possess thought, surely he will speak to humankind, whose nature and awareness are the most comprehensive of all conscious beings. Since he will speak to humankind, surely he will speak to the most perfect of humankind and those most worthy of address. Because most people, let's be frank, I mean, I look at myself, it took so much to grab my attention to something that was already revealed and expounded on. Can you imagine if people were all like that? Most people are in ghafla, in heedlessness. So these special people are people who, like Ibrahim alayhi salam, like the Prophet alayhi salam, they were looking for, they were searching, seeking guidance. Earnestly, they left everything and sought it, not until like things are, we hear about it and we don't take it seriously until things get really, we really feel the need for it. So humbly, I accept that those who are most worthy of address need to be, and they have been addressed first. And now just pray, I'm just praying to be, inshallah, to be aware of my need more and more, and to spend more of my effort, more of my focus on this path, inshallah. Since he will speak to those who are most perfect, perfect here is perfect in the sense that they realize their vulnerability, they realize their powerlessness, they realize that they need guidance, they realize that they don't know. So those who think that they're perfect, they know and they have plans and like we do, to that extent, we don't feel the need for the guidance and we don't seek it. So perfect here is not in the sense that we usually understand it. Since he will speak to those who are most perfect, most worthy of address, highest in morality, and who will guide humanity, he will certainly speak to Muhammad ﷺ, who, as friend and foe alike, testify is of highest disposition and morality, who is obeyed by 1/5 of humanity, to whose spiritual rule half of the globe has submitted, with the radiance of whose light the future of humankind has been illumined for 14th century, to whom the believers, the luminous segments of humanity, renew 5 times daily the oath of allegiance, for whose happiness they pray, for whom they call down God's blessings and bear admiration and love in their hearts. Certainly, he will speak to Muhammad, upon him the blessings and peace, and indeed he has done. He will make him the prophet, and indeed he has done. He will make him the guide to the rest, for the rest of humanity, and indeed he has done. And the second sign is God, most noble messenger, upon whom be blessings and peace, declared his prophethood and presented to humanity such a decree as the Qur'an of mighty stature, and such manifest miracles as number, according to the scholars, 1,000. The occurrence of those miracles in their entirety is as certain as the fact that he declared himself a prophet. In fact, as is shown by the words of the most obstinate unbelievers quoted in various places of the wise Qur'an, even they could not deny his miracles, so-called dumb sorcery or magic, in order to satisfy themselves or to deceive their followers. So I think it's important that we keep in mind that the Qur'an, yes, is a miracle. It is the greatest miracle. It's the greatest miracle because, of course, all the prophets, including the Prophet ﷺ, had many miracles of feeding people, water coming out of his hand, his fingers, healing and all kinds, healing the blind, healing all kinds of illnesses, even madness. But the Qur'an is incomparably beyond comparison greater than those miracles. because the scope for guidance is totally, those are not there for guidance. The miracles of the prophets are there to prove that this is a prophet. Back to the second sign, he says the miracles of Muhammad والسلام, have the certainty of confirmation. It's a confirmation, and the miracles is the confirmation by the creator of the cosmos, of the universe, of his declaration of prophethood. When he says, I'm a prophet from God, this is sent to me, then God is confirming the prophethood, not only of Muhammad, of all the prophets, through the miracles. So he's saying in the second sign, it has the effect of the words, you have spoken truly. Suppose that you said in an assembly of a ruler, while being observed by him, the ruler has appointed me to such and such position. Should you be asked for a proof of your claim, the word yes uttered by the ruler should be sufficient to support you. Or if the ruler changed his usual practice and attitude at your request, this should confirm your claim even more soundly and more definitely than the word yes. And here it's like in the miracles, Sunnatullah, Allah creates in a certain way, and then for his servant, for his worshipper, especially for the prophet, he changes his way of doing it. For instance, a tree speaks, cries and speaks. An animal speaks. Pebbles start saying tasbih in human language. All these miracles are confirmation from the Creator that yes, this person is appointed by me. However, that's not the guidance. That's not the teaching. If you look at Christianity, for instance, the concept of prophethood does not exist in the sense that we have, because the prophets are there, but they are not really teachers, because Jesus is God, so he's not really a prophet, and he is God based on the evidence is his miracles. That's why in the Muslim tradition, in order not to deify the prophet, in this case Muhammad ﷺ, the miracles are there in the tradition, but they are not at the forefront, because at the forefront is the Qur'an. Why? Because that's the teaching, that's the guidance. If we just believe in the miracles, it would be imitative, and we would not know what prophethood is about and what the prophet brought to us, and we would not live with that. We would not benefit from the guidance, from the teaching itself. So that's why, of course, the Quran you cannot compare it to the other miracles. But sometimes, especially in Orientalists, it's like, Prophet Muhammad does not even have miracles. He just says the Quran is enough. Yes, the Quran is more than enough, especially now, because in his time, people needed to see those miracles for his prophethood. But after that, the Quran is the living miracle, is the teaching, it's the message, it's the guidance. So it is beyond, it's much more meaningful and important. Its importance cannot be compared with the other. So here he says the greatest, back to 18th sign, the greatest miracle of God's noble messenger, alayhi salatu wassalam, an eternal one. It's an eternal one. It's not like the other miracles happened and ended. Some people, the Sahaba, saw it, and that's why we know, because they all saw it. Or even if one person reported, since the others did not say, no, what are you saying? It means they also confirmed. But as far as we're concerned, the biggest miracle that we still have is the Qur'an, and especially that in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, it was not healing or this kind of things that were most prized. What was most prized was oratory skills, poetry, eloquence, and the Qur'an was also a miracle in that sense, because even those who did not believe, they still prostrated to the beauty and the eloquence of the Qur'an. So here he's saying is an eternal one, the greatest miracle, an eternal one, is the all-wise Qur'an, which comprises hundreds of evidences of his prophethood and 40 aspects of whose own miraculousness have been proven. So when he says have been proven, it's because the book, the work, Isharatul I'jaz, the signs of miraculousness, in there he shows 40 signs of miraculousness of the Qur'an. That's why he says 40. So the first point, he said, if it is asked, the miraculousness of the Qur'an lies in its eloquence. And usually, Alia remembers there was once a panel on the Qur'an, the importance of the Qur'an, and most of the speakers spoke about the miraculousness of the Qur'an. However, they all emphasized the language and the eloquence. Mind you, none of them was a native speaker, which even if you are a native speaker, it's not enough, because you need to be an expert in the field, not only in Arabic, but also in Quranic Arabic, in order to really not only master the subject, but also feel the miraculousness. But it can't be only in eloquence. Or the eloquence looks to meaning, let's say. Eloquence is not only how you play with words, because in Arabic, if you are not, how do you say, signifying, articulating some meaningful thing, then that's not really eloquence. Playing with words, like flowery words, is not eloquence. So he says, but the question is, the miraculousness of the Qur'an lies in its eloquence, but all classes of people have the right to a share of its understanding, and only one learned scholar out of 1,000 can understand the miraculousness in its eloquence, which is true. He's saying, so how is it then? The answer, the all-wise Qur'an has a different kind of miraculousness corresponding to the understanding of each class of people. It indicates the existence of its miraculousness to each in a different way. For example, to the scholars of rhetoric and eloquence, balagha, it exhibits the miraculousness of its extraordinary eloquence. To the poets and orators, it shows its exalted, beautiful, and original style, which no one can imitate, although it pleases everyone. The passage of time does not cause its style to age. It always remains fresh and new. Its prose and word order are so well ordered that it is both elevated and pleasant. To soothsayers and other diviners of the unseen, it displays its miraculousness in its extraordinary reports concerning the unseen. To historians, it demonstrates its miraculousness by giving information concerning events of past ages, as well as those of the future and of the intermediate realm and the hereafter. To social and political scientists, it shows the miraculousness in its sacred principles, yes, the supreme Sharia, which proceeds from the Qur'an, indicates that mystery of miraculousness to those occupied with knowledge. If you study a little bit of history of, for instance, international law in some areas, you will see how the first works were, how do you say, benefited from Muslims' work. And the Muslims' works were, of course, inspired by the Qur'an and the Sharia of the Qur'an. To those who occupied with knowledge of God and cosmic truth, it shows the miraculousness of the sacred divine truth in the Qur'an, or else it indicates the existence of that miraculousness. To the Sufis and the saints, it shows the miraculousness in the hidden mysteries of its verses, which constantly rise and fall like waves in the sea of the Qur'an, and so on. To each of 40 classes of people, it opens up a window and shows its miraculousness. To ordinary people, even, who only listen to the Qur'an, understanding a little of its meaning, confirm that it does not resemble any other book. They say the Qur'an is either inferior to all other books we have read, which not even an enemy could claim, just as it is impossible, or it is superior to all of them, and it is thus a miracle. Now, in order to help, okay, here, let's, in order to help him, but I don't know if I'm going to read here. In order to help him, we shall explain further the miraculous hymn, whoever asked the question, the miraculousness which the ordinary human person understood or understand by just listening. It is as follows. When the Qur'an of miraculous exposition appeared, challenging the whole world, it aroused passionate feeling of two kinds of people. In France, first in France, the desire to imitate it, that is the desire to resemble the style of their beloved Qur'an and wish to speak like it. And usually you end up using phrases in your du'as, in your prayers and everything. And the second in enemies, the desire to criticize and dispute it, that is the wish to invalidate its claim of miraculousness by competing with its style. Thus, because of these two intense emotions, millions of books were written in Arabic and are to be seen. Now, lots of books were written about the miraculousness, i'jaz al-Qur'an, the miraculousness of the Qur'an about language-wise. And that's why many theories that we were developed in the West in the 20th century, you have them all about the meaning, like words. A message is not only the words written as it was thought in the Western world, but it was who is speaking, to who it's speaking. The same word can mean differently, who is speaking to who, for what purpose. All these things are very new. Hermeneutics is something new, but these are centuries old because of the study of the Qur'an by the Friends. Furthermore, the all-wise Qur'an demonstrates its miraculousness before the uneducated mass of people who do not understand its meaning by not wearing them. It's not tiring, you don't get bored or tired. Indeed, they say, if I hear the finest and best known poems, 2 or 3 lines, I become bored of them, but the Qur'an never wearies them. The more I listen to it, even the more it pleases me. It cannot therefore be written by men. I mean, there are even people who used it to heal people. And you didn't even need to be a Muslim. Just listening to it. The children who try to memorize it, this is, since I was young, I could not believe, like especially non-Arabic speakers, they can learn the whole book by heart, memorize it, even though they don't even speak the language. They don't understand what they are memorizing, subhanAllah. Shows children who try to memorize it, the all-wise Qur'an shows its miraculousness by settling in their memories with the greatest of ease, despite their small, delicate, weak, and simple heads, being unable to retain for long a single page of other books. And many of the verses and phrases of that large Qur'an resembling one another, which could cause muddle and confusion. Even to the sick and the dying who are disturbed by the slightest sound and noise, the murmuring sound of the Qur'an makes felt a sort of its miraculousness by being as sweet and agreeable for them as the Zamzam water. In short, the all-wise Qur'an demonstrates its miraculousness to 40 different classes and groups of people, or it indicates the existence of its miraculousness. Even if you are not, it doesn't demonstrate it, there is at least there is a sign and indication to its miraculousness. It neglects no one, even for those who can comprehend only, okay, I'm not going to go there, what their eyes see, who have no ear to hear with, no heart to feel with, and no knowledge to judge with. The Qur'an alludes to its miraculousness. This is a way of writing the Qur'an that have lots of similar words will come together. The words of Allah are aligned together. There is a way of writing the Qur'an. You can, at least in Turkey, you can buy it. Those words are all written in golden, so it's easy to see the, not only in the page, but if you could take a needle and go through, if you put it through one Allah, it goes through Allah's in all the pages, things like that. So I'm not going there. The second point is a point that everywhere you will hear, which is, he says, at the time of Moses alayhi salam, it was magic that was prevalent. So his most important miracles resembled it. They were in that field because people gave importance to that field. And at Jesus alayhi salam, Isa alayhi salam's time, it was medicine that was prevalent, and his miracles were mostly of that kind. Similarly, at the time of the most noble messenger, alayhi salatu wassalam, so although he has lots of similar miracles to them, but his main miracle being the Qur'an, is saying, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, in the Arabian Peninsula, 4 things were prevalent. The first, eloquence and rhetoric. The second, poetry and oratory. Third, soothsaying and divining matters of the unseen. Fourth, knowledge of past event and cosmology. Thus, when the Qur'an of miraculous exposition appeared, it challenged those with knowledge of these 4 fields. And there is also, he talks about the tahaddi al-Qur'an, the challenge of the Qur'an, when so the question is, if it is asked, how do we know that no one could dispute or contest it? Because he says, no one attempted to contest the Qur'an. The answer, he says, if it had been possible to dispute. So the challenge of the Qur'an is a well-known topic in theology, in Islamic theology. It's called tahaddi fil Qur'an. So he says, if it had been possible to dispute the Qur'an, for sure, someone would have attempted. For their religion, their possessions, their lives, and their families had been put into peril. If they had disputed it, they would have been saved. If it had been possible, why is this? Because in the Quran, there are passages that challenge and say, and if you are in doubt about it, about what I revealed to my servant, bring a single chapter, single surah. And a single surah could be a line like Surah Al-Kawthar. And call your witnesses besides God if you are truthful. We are also told, if you do not do this, and you can never do this. So the Quran is saying, if you cannot do, and you will never be able to do it, then fear the fire which has been prepared for the disbelievers. In other places, it says, bring 10 surahs like it and call for help whomever you can. It's not saying one person will do it. It says, get committees, get help from jinns, from human beings, from whatever you want. Just come up with one single surah, with 10 surahs, and call for help on whomever you can besides God, if you are truthful. Of course, besides God, because the claim is that this is from God. And another one also, we're told, if all humankind and jinn would come together to produce the like of the Qur'an, of this Qur'an, they could not produce its like. Even if they would exert all the strength in helping one another. These are huge claim, huge challenges. And so in this side, he's saying how so far maybe people do not feel motivated, but he said at the time it was a new religion claiming equality, claiming believing in God. They were believing in idols and things besides God, and they were believing in a hierarchical society. So at least those on the top, they felt very challenged, and they did not accept because they were losing their privileges. So he's saying they ought to have done everything they could, and these people were well known for their skills in language, but they could not, and they did not. So that's also a sign of the miraculousness of the Quran. And he ends the whole page with, he says, in short, as the famous Jahid, he's well known in Arabic literature, puts it, he said, Al-Jahid said, dispute with words was not possible, so they were compelled to fight with the sword. If they could have done it with the words, they could have just made up one surah, one line, and because that time everyone knew, were proficient in the language, so they would know that this is not of the same caliber. So if they had to rely on wanting to annihilate the Muslim community, it means they couldn't find something easier. And if we have time, the last, there is another point where he talks about, which is the most important for us. He's saying there are 6 aspects to the miracle, to the Quran being miraculous, brilliant, luminous. And he says, so before it, like in front of it, there is the goal is the happiness of this world and the next. So this is looks to us. We are not like language specialists and things. He's saying, when you look the front, it looks to, and this is very important because can find lots of spiritual teachings here and there that are quite profound and that can bring lots of peace and healing in this world in many ways. But one thing that I find always missing, and for me it's extremely important, what is missing is akhirah. And if akhirah is missing, how can we find true healing or true peace in a world that is flowing, so transient? So that's the huge difference between the teaching of the Qur'an and even in other religions where there is belief in the hereafter. However, that belief in the hereafter is imitative. In the Qur'an, it's emphasized so much. After belief in God comes belief in akhirah. Akhirah, there's so many evidences, ayat, ways of reasoning that we are taught so that we have no doubt about akhirah. Here and now, we are certain about resurrection and the hereafter. And that's why the 10th word of Imam Nursi is a very long treatise. It's on resurrection and akhirah. So he says the first aspect, there are 6 aspects, like a cube, like a Kaaba. One looks to happiness in this world and the next. It has laid its hands on post-eternity and the hereafter and contains the life, happiness and paradise. This is, you can't have true lasting happiness if there is, akhirah is not grounded in that teaching. Above it shines the seal of miraculousness. Beneath it lies the pillars of proof and evidence. Its inner face is pure guidance, while its right causes the mind to affirm it with phrases like, will they not think, providing spiritual sustenance to hearts. Its left causes the conscious to testify to God's blessings. Not only we are taught to think and reflect, but also look at the blessings. So the heart and the soul are also involved. So from what side, what corner can thieves of doubts and misgiving enter the Qur'an of miraculous exposition? Yes, the Qur'an of miraculous exposition encompasses all the points of agreement found in the books of the prophets, the saints, and those who affirm divine unity, whose centuries, ways, and temperaments were all different. They all, you can find those truths there in the Qur'an. Those who sought the truth through either the intellect or the heart, mentioned in their book, the all-wise Qur'an's concise decrees and principles. You look at even the philosophers in Islam, the well-known geniuses like Ibn Sina and things, they still are relying on the teachings of the Qur'an and the principles of the Qur'an in such a way as to confirm them. Thus, they are like the roots of the heavenly tree of the Qur'an, the roots and also the fruits, we can say. He carries on like this. Without doubt, the Qur'an also leads to the happiness of this world and the next, and urges human being to it. If anyone doubts this, let him read the Qur'an once and heed what it says. Moreover, the fruits of that the Qur'an produces are both perfect and living, in which case the roots of the trees of the Qur'an are founded on reality and are living. For the life of the fruits points to the life of the tree. See how many perfect, living, luminous fruits it has produced every century, such as saints and purified scholars. I mean, you can go and look at the lives of so many saints and scholars, and they all benefited from this Qur'an. Alhamdulillah. The Qur'an is also affirmed by all sound natures. So long as it's not corrupted in any way, human nature confirms it, for an easy conscience and peace of mind are to be found through its lights. That is to say, unspoiled human nature affirms it through the testimony of a tranquil conscience. When the more you live with the guidance of the Quran, you find that inner peace, tranquility, and says to the Quran through the tongue of disposition, lisan al-hal, our nature cannot be perfected without you. We have proved, we have proved this in this and this and that. I'm not going there. I will go at the end, which is, it says, there is in the Quran an eye that sees and encompasses the whole universe. This is, here it's short. Each one of these claims is explained in other parts of the work of this author. There is in the Quran an eye that sees and encompasses the whole universe and holds it before it like the pages of a book, describing its levels and worlds. The whole universe is just like a book. Like a watchmaker turns open, shows and describes his clock. The Quran does the same with the universe as though it were holding it in its hand. The Quran of mighty stature is thus, it declares, فَاعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ, know that there is no deity except God, and proclaim the divine unity. O God, make the Quran our companion in this world and a friend for us in the grave, and at the resurrection an intercessor, and on the bridge a light, and from the fire a shield and screen, and in paradise a companion, and in all good works a guide and leader. O God, illuminate our hearts and graves with the light of belief and the Quran, and illumine the proof of the Quran for the sake of and in veneration of the one to whom the Quran was revealed, and grant blessings and peace to him and his family from the most merciful one, the gentle one. Ameen. اللهم اجعل القرآن لنا في الدنيا قرينا وفي القبر بونسا وفي القيامة شفيعا وعلى الصراط نورا ومن النار سترا وحجابا وفي الجنة رفيقا وإلى الخيرات كلها دليلا وإماما. اللهم نور قلوبنا وقبورنا بنور الإيمان والقرآن، ونور برهان القرآن بحقه وبحرمة من أنزل عليه القرآن عليه وعلى آله الصلاة والسلام من الرحمن الحنان. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. This is the end of the 33 windows.
Ameen. So stay, Yamina. Inshallah, it's 8:41, so inshallah we lost.
Yes.
May Allah accept all the du'as and make this Quran the spring of our heart. Ameen.
Yes, and the light.
Light here, Noor and
In this world before the grave, inshallah.
Ameen. Ameen.
Be our light in the grave, inshallah, to the extent that it is a light in this life.
Ameen. And it's a companion also. It will be a companion. Shifa, and it's
What a
need
beautiful
for us.
What a beautiful companion.
Ameen. So inshallah. So do we know, Sister Yamina, what we are doing next time, or shall we decide?
I have not decided yet. I want to stay in the words.
Inshallah.
Maybe either the 13th or 8 and then 13th, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Sister Yamina, and Jazakallah everyone for staying with us, and may Allah benefit us from all this knowledge. Amen.